What's up, hoop heads from around the globe? This is Buzzer Beaters. I'm Eddie Aparicio. This is my co-host, Anthony Tuan Corral. And this is actually our weekly Warriors Talk segment. We are brought to you by Grumblings Media, and you can find us there or wherever you get your podcasts. Okay, for today, we're going to go ahead and talk about essentially 5 topics, essentially. Kerr just got his 600th win, right? And there's a lot of talk about that, especially because I think this has probably been Kerr's toughest year as a Warrior head coach. And there's a lot of mixed feelings about, I think the whole Jonathan Kuminga thing kind of just made a lot of fans sour on how that was all handled. And, then you see him kind of, the other thing I put here is that he apologized to Will Richard. Did you see that when he yelled at him? And it was kind of an embarrassing moment for the poor kid, right? And so, that's one thing that we're going to talk about as well. And then, Kristaps Porziņģis had a 30.9. And, this guy, the only issue with this guy is his availability, right? He's had health issues. He gets injured a lot. But, these are, we're going to talk about his impact on the team. And, of course, Jimmy Butler has come back onto the team. Has been on this road trip. We're going to talk about the presence that he has and what that impact has on the team and so forth. And then general observations of the Warriors to this point as we're winding down before we get into the play-in. So, all right, bro. So Steve Kerr, man, like I said, he's a polarizing figure right now, but you got to give it to him, man. The guy has 600 wins, and he did that. He's the 4th coach to do that in NBA history, and did it in 805 games for Phil Jackson. Pat Riley's the other one. He did it in 832 games. And then Greg Popovich did it in 887 games. And then Steve Kerr did it in 943 games. So job well done.
Quickest. He was the 4th quickest to get to that number.
Yep, the 4th quickest. Exactly. That's the list. It's the 4th quickest. Yes. So thanks for. So it's an achievement. It's a milestone. It goes to show. I mean, this guy is going to be a Hall of Fame coach. There's no doubt. Okay, you can't take anything away from what he has accomplished when he essentially inherited a pretty good team from Mark Jackson, right? And Mark Jackson only could take him so far. And when that move was made to bring him, out of, essentially the broadcasting booth to come and coach the Warriors, a lot of us were like, oh my God, really? Because I remember Stan Van Gundy was another name that was floating around at that time. And I kind of thought maybe he might be the better pick, right? But it looks like Steve Kerr figured it. I mean, you got to give it to him. He played for 2 Hall of Fame coaches, in Greg Popovich and Phil Jackson. So he's learned a lot from those 2 guys in winning. So he's applied a lot of that.
So,
and
Eddie, 3 coaches.
3 Hall of Fame coaches.
Correct. Lute Olson.
Well, yeah, from yeah.
The Hall of Fame of basketball, right? Not the Hall of Fame of the NBA. I believe it's.
Yeah, you're right. So you're right. Lute Olson, you have to give him credit because Lute Olson is where it all started too for him, right? So, but anyway, so it looks like it was the right choice. The thing is that Steve Kerr, like I said, is polarizing right now. I think the league is caught up to what the Warriors do. Everybody kind of replicated it. And, everybody shoots threes. That's why you're seeing the brand of basketball you're seeing these days is because everybody's trying to do what the Warriors do. But the Warriors were the only team that could really do it as efficiently as they did. And, everybody's trying to do it. Now it's kind of shifting a little bit. I think, with the emergence of, the Oklahoma City Thunder, I think you're kind of seeing a little bit of a shift and more athletic kind of teams that can shoot positionless basketball. That's kind of what's now the demand. And that's kind of the trend, I think, in the NBA. And the Warriors way, I think, is kind of slipping away a little bit. And I think that's part of the reason why you probably see some of this ire a little bit for Steve Kerr is because I think fans are getting a little bit impatient in him not changing his ways. And, and then you see what happened with Will Richard, how he yelled. So I kind of wanted to set the stage for you on just all of this about Steve Kerr, man. What are your thoughts about Steve Kerr just in general after everything I just talked about?
One, for the people that are upset with Steve Kerr. You mentioned it. So Steve Kerr has 5 rings as a player.
Yes.
4 rings as a coach. 4th quickest to 600 wins. So at what point do we stop calling this luck? And at what point do we start saying, dude, the guy's got something to offer? Right? I think the guy who's viewed as the best coach of all time, or arguably, is Phil Jackson.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
When they tore the Bulls apart, Phil Jackson left. right? At the end of the last dance, he left to go coach the Lakers, which happened to have Kobe and Shaq. And he ended up winning championships there. And then what happened when he left and he went to the Knicks? He went as a coach, he went as a GM, and it was just horrible. It was a horrible, example of his coaching. Yeah. Correct. And, and for those that don't remember, he practically had Steve Kerr in the bag to go coach those Knicks.
Yes.
And then Kerr was on the Warriors position, and it's unclear whether he actually had a verbal commitment or not. But, the expectation was that he was going to the Knicks. And then he ended up going to go play for the Warriors. So to me, yes, Steve Kerr's offense right now is running into some issues. Yes, he looks a little outdated. But, a lot of that has to coincide with the health of his players. Curry's old. Draymond's old. You got some young players that aren't really threats to be the main player on any team. The whole Kuminga thing, we'll see how that plays out. I mean, Kuminga, after his pretty impressive double game against the Wizards, and I think he had another game. I think he had like a couple of minutes, played like, scored like 7 points and like 4 rebounds. It was more like a Kuminga stat line that we had seen. Yep. I was looking at the stat line right before we jumped on here, and I think he had like 9 points.
He has 11 points right now.
Okay, 11 points. So nothing overwhelming. So that is yet to be determined. But to me, I think Kerr's a hell of a coach. He's got a hell of an NBA legacy. I do think that maybe he's starting to lose the locker room in terms of his voice. So I think
I sense that too, bro.
Yeah. I think it may be time for him to start maybe looking for something else. So, but to me, I got nothing but love for Kerr. I look at him as I looked at Bochy, as I looked at Walsh, as I looked at Seifert, right? Like, that was our guy. He got us there. Coaches don't last forever. All coaches have an expiration date, and I think we're getting close to it. But that doesn't demean his accomplishments or what he's done for the organization.
I 100% agree with you, bro. I mean, the guy has done a lot. And the one thing that I would say that is probably his superpower, and we brought this up in previous podcasts, he's really good communicator with people. And, he can establish rapport pretty much with almost everybody in the locker room. He just knows how to communicate well and effectively, right? And I think that's for somebody who's in the business of people, which is me, because I do sales, I definitely value people who can do that, in a way that they can deliver a message, and the message might be hard on the person, but it's delivered in a way that the person receives it. That's something that he's good at privately. Now, of course, we saw the other night, he didn't have that moment with Will Richard. And, the whole Will, and for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, the other night they were playing the Knicks, and the Warriors were up by like 21 points against the Knicks, and they just squandered that lead. And then they started getting very turnover happy. I think it was the second quarter is where they kind of started falling apart, and there was a lot of tension mounting because the frustration mounting, I think, from Steve Kerr's side. And what happened is that there was a steal that was made, and Brandon Podziemski had the ball and then passed the ball to Will Richard, and it was a horrible pass. Okay, it was a horrible pass, and you see that Will Richard was trying to save the ball from going out of bounds and try to throw it back, and it was a turnover. And then Steve Kerr on national TV focused on him, and you can hear him saying, "Hey, you got to respect the ball, right?" In essence, there was a culmination of a bunch of frustration because the Warriors had lost a 21-point lead against a pretty good team, the Knicks, and then ultimately ended up losing that game. But he came back and apologized about this and talked about it on sports talk radio as well, that he was just really frustrated. He went and revisited back with Will, and he said, I should have been more mad at Brandon. Brandon Podziemski was the guy that really made the bad pass, and you were just trying to, from my angle, I couldn't see that you were trying to save it, from being a turnover, and I overreacted, and my bad. I should have, throw that ire at Brandon Podziemski and not you, right? So that was, something that, he fell back on his sword a little bit, which is cool that he did that, right? And that's what I'm saying, that he's a good communicator with. And the thing is that, the talk show, all the people that call in, like you just said, you have this, Brandon Podziemski is a guy that you like to hate. You just said
Yeah.
it, right? Oh man.
Yeah.
And I kind of like the guy just because he's got that, right? He's just got that fire. He gets his nose in between things, and
Yeah.
he's cocky as heck. He's actually pretty good. He's actually pretty
He,
good.
he is good, but his cockiness outweighs his ability.
Yes.
People don't like that.
Better than he is, right? And that's what it is. That's
Correct.
what probably gets under your
Correct.
skin. But what I was going to make, the point that I was going to make is that he's also a very polarizing player on the Warriors because of things that he said, that he wants to take the keys from Draymond and Curry, be the next guy. He wants to be better than Curry. He just said something recently about the injury was a blessing, because that gives people like me more time. So he says dumb things sometimes, and he does dumb things on the court. But overall, I think he's a good young player, and he's going to be a good rotational piece moving forward.
Yeah.
And that's my opinion. But the thing is, a lot of people think that he gets unfair praise and unfair playing time from Steve Kerr, and they thought this was an example again of him getting favoritism over anybody else.
That's the biggest problem with that. That to everyone's eye. Now, I'll be honest. When I first heard the yelling, the first thing that came to my mind was he yelling at him because he threw it behind his back? Would he have been happier if he just let the ball go? Was it the way that he tried to save it? Now that he's apologized and everything, but that was what initially I thought he was upset about. Like, if you're going to save it, don't throw it back to the other team, on their half of the offensive court, just let it go, or throw it forward or whatever. But you're right. The biggest problem with all of this is that everyone thinks that he favors Pods and that this is just another example. And to me, that's hard to defend. I can't defend that. Like, that's ultimately that's what it looked like.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
And that's why I think you see some of this reaction, man. So, but yeah, Steve Kerr got a 600th win. But again, this has been his toughest year. And you saw some of that on display. And we talked about maybe the locker room, he might be losing his voice a little bit. It's very possible that that's the case. And you can tell just by, the Warriors, the general observation for me about the Warriors is something that we had talked about podcasts ago, that they are doing a late, quiet tank. Because they know that they're going to be a play-in team no matter what, and they're just going to, see how far their players can take them as comprised right now with the roster that they have. The one thing that still need to see is Porzingis, Green, and Curry play all together, which hopefully is going to happen soon, so that, they get a glimpse as to what they could see in the future. Right now, they're not really caring about too much about this season. It's very obvious, right? Yeah. Very obvious. Now, if they get found money and start doing well in the play-in, and they get lucky in advance and, get to the second round, then in their mind, they're like, hey, man, our young guys are getting all of the, this valuable playing time that's only going to help us next year. And then we're also going to determine who stays and who goes. Who do we package to get, Kawhi Leonard or Giannis or whatever, right? So that's what they're doing, man. It's very obvious to me now that that's what they're doing. So that's my general observation on this. But the highlight here, one of the highlights, and by the way, we've been talking about guys that we really like. Guy Santos been playing awesome. That guy has been awesome. DeAnthony Melton, awesome. We brought these guys up weeks ago that these were the two guys that really stood out. Now you got somebody in Kristaps Porziņģis, who we all know this guy is a hell of a player. He was called the unicorn because of his length, and he can shoot, and he has a pretty good all-around game, although he's not a fast guy. He's not an athletic guy, but he's just very skilled. Nikola Jokic isn't very athletic, but he's very skilled. Kind of the same thing. This guy's very skilled, right? He's not athletic. So we saw that this guy had a great night the other night. He scored 30 points, and, and I think, the Warriors, they think they have action now with this guy, if he stays healthy. And then Jimmy Butler comes back, and then, Steph Curry, and then whoever else they can get in the offseason, right? So, anyway, so what are your general thoughts about Porzingis in general?
Yeah, no, I mean, he's very tantalizing. He's a tease.
Absolutely.
I mean, when you see him do certain things, you're like, okay, we got something. But, it's going to be hard to rely on his availability. I really, really hope we get to see at least 5 games with him and Curry together because, I follow Kristaps a little bit. He's got a very laser shot, but, dude, it's very accurate.
Yes, it is.
Very accurate with his. I mean, he's got it hard at any loft. 7-2. So when he's shooting, the angle's already kind of weird. But like, it's just I keep looking at that. I'm like, that looks like a brick. And boom in, boom in. Like, they just like snap it. And I'm like, okay, this is pretty good. So to me, it's exciting. It's exciting what he can do. I'm hoping that if we can find a way to determine what his health is going to be in terms of the mystery, the POTS or whatever he has, never mind injuries, that's a whole other can of worms. But if we're able to determine what his availability will be around this illness, if we can get him, under $20 million a year,
Right.
and have him play with Butler and Curry and Draymond, I think, we might have something. I mean, they're all old as dirt. I mean, well, not KP, but the other ones are. And so we'll see how this goes. But I do want to see them play about 4 or 5 games this year, hopefully prior to playing the play-in game.
I think you're going to see that. I mean, that's part of why they, brought him in because of his skill set. But, and then, of course, they're just saving Curry right now. If they start moving up the ranks, then they probably bring him sooner. But right now, they know that they're relegated to be either a 9 or 10 seed. I mean, they can still get to the 8th seed. It's just like they're losing too much right now, right? And that's the thing, is that they're losing ground on the 8th seed, the Clippers, right? The Clippers are the 8th seed. So that's that. So I don't think they're going to really push themselves too hard to try and get that.
We really haven't touched on Al Horford, right? He got an injury.
Yes. It is strained abductor, I think it is. Yep.
He was playing really well. So we'll see, at his age, these things aren't guaranteed when he'll come back. But, if we get him this year, we get into the play-in game, maybe we make a little bit of noise. I don't know, But to me, really what you're looking at is if you can get to that 8th seed and then beat the Phoenix Suns and steal the 7th seed, then you're looking at the San Antonio Spurs, because I don't think you really don't want to play the
Oklahoma City Thunder. I mean, you have no shot. I mean, you have some glimmer of hope against the Spurs just because they match up pretty well with them for whatever reason, even though San Antonio is a way better team. It's a matchup thing. Last year, the Warriors matched up well against the Thunder, and not this year. I don't know why, but it's not working. So, but yeah. So the other thing that, I wanted to bring up also is that, Jimmy Butler, right? He, had this injury in January. Was supposed to get off crutches pretty soon, but now he flew out with the team, on this latest road trip. And, it probably coincides with the thought that maybe there needs to be another voice there to kind of get the team kind of rallying again, right? And it's very possible that might be the reason, but also, just from, just bringing up the, the feelings of the group, right? Just the you want to, I lost the word that I'm looking for, but it's just that everybody feels good that this guy went down, but he wants to be around his teammates, right? It's uplifting the team, right? So that's a positive. And then Curry too. Curry's now become more present, in these games, even though, he's still injured with the runner's knee. So both these guys are voices that I think the team needs to hear, because it's possible that the coaching staff's voices have essentially gotten, less impactful. So what are your thoughts?
I thought it was interesting because the couple of times that Butler's been hurt, he really has disappeared from the side. You don't really see him.
Yeah.
And obviously he had to have surgery, and I don't know if he can fly, but I don't know, where he's staying or where he's rehabilitated.
No, he can't fly now. He can't fly now.
No, what I'm saying is he doesn't make it to the Chase games, or I don't know if he's near there or if he's in Southern California. I don't know where he's at. But, I found it interesting that he chose that game, right? It was the Washington game, right? And I'm curious, would it have something to do because they thought the odds of Kerr getting his 600th win were greatest then? Was that why he was there? Was he there? Why that particular time on that particular road trip?
That might be the reason. So
I found it interesting, and so, I don't know if it's a boost to the young guys. Hey, let's get going. We can get here and whatnot. So I just thought it was interesting, the timing. I think that timing is going to reveal itself a little bit down the road, maybe. And when we see like what players stay, what players leave, because one of the impacts of Porzingis showing up is like Post his time has gone down.
Yes, Quentin Post's time. Yes, yeah, you're a little bit. Yeah.
Okay. Anyway. Yeah, so I'm curious about Post. What's going to do. His development is going to suffer a little bit now. Especially if they re-sign Porzingis. But anyway, I just thought the timing of Butler's presence on the road trip was interesting, and just wanted to mention that.
Yep. I agree, man. I agree. Any final kind of observations you want to make before we we're at 20 minutes right now, so I think we're gonna probably try and keep this within 30 minutes, like we've been doing all the time, which I think increases our viewership. And by the way, if you like our show, please give us a thumbs up. And we've been getting a lot of commentary on our last Warriors Talk podcast, so we really appreciate the engagement. We will reply. I reply to everything, right? Twan, we got to get you to reply though sometimes. Anyway, we really appreciate your engagement. But any final thoughts on just the Warriors, on where the state of the Warriors are right now? Kerr, anything that we just talked about, any final, cherry on top comments?
Just overall, they've had a rash of injuries. Horford is hurt, Moody is hurt, obviously Porzingis has been in and out of the lineup, Curry's hurt, Butler's hurt. There's a lot of injuries that have been going on, and some of them are age related, some of them are to the younger players. Just my observations is, this is giving a lot of players an opportunity to step up and see who can be what. You mentioned Guy Santos early in the segment. I think that we've got a solid rotational piece now. I think he's really a player. One that I started kind of singing his praise early on, and I don't know if he's hurt. I don't know what's wrong, but there's something wrong with Spencer. Like, he's just not with Pat Spencer. He doesn't seem to have the same energy he had early on.
You're right. You're right.
I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if it's he got a 1-year contract, if he's upset about that. I don't know, but there's something seems off with him.
It's a good observation. I agree with you.
Yeah, and they got this guy, LJ Cryer, who's a better shot than Spencer, is probably a little more tougher on defense. In terms of floor general, I haven't really seen enough to figure out who might be better. But, if Spencer doesn't come out of this like mini slump that I'm noticing, LJ Cryer could probably take his spot in the rotation or in the organization. And so just something to observe. Leon has been impressive. He's a skinny kid, but his defense is pretty good.
Can't shoot very well, but his defense is good.
His defense is solid. We need a defensive wing guy, and he can fill that role. I have been noticing, we signed a 10-day contract for that kid from Yurtseven.
Omer Yurtseven. Yeah, he played he played for the Miami Heat.
Correct. Yeah, he started. And I remember when he in the summer league, he was impressive. Yes. So, at least I'm starting to notice a trend where the Warriors are trying to find bigger
guys.
Bigger guys. Williams is a little bit of a bigger guy. Leon is a little, in terms of height, he's a little bit of a bigger guy. So I kind of like that trend. If you're gonna succeed, it's a lot someone who's 6'8" or bigger. That's so those are, I'm wondering if this is kind of Mike Dunleavy taking his imprint on what he thinks he should be doing, and he's looking at bigger bodies, which I think in the long haul may be better, at least the way the league is transforming now.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, man. I mean, they have to adjust. They run a lot of 4-guard lineups out there sometimes, man. Right, and that's drives a lot of the fan base crazy. They think that Steve Kerr is just enamored with the small ball thing, and can't break that mold, and doesn't seem to want to try and break that mold. And that's what I think a lot of fans kind of react to a little bit. So, but anyway, bro, hey, that's our show for this week. This is Warriors Talk. We are a property of grumblingsmedia.com. You can find us at grumblingsmedia.com, as well as wherever you can find your podcasts. I'm Eddie Aparicio. This is Anthony Twan Corral. We're also known as the Cisco Kidz. We're here every week. We appreciate you tuning in. And until then, have a good rest of the week, everyone. See you next week.
See ya.
Hey, everybody, this is William Del Pilar, founder of Grumblings Media, and I want to say thank you for watching our content. If you want to support our all-volunteer efforts at Grumblings Media, smash the subscribe button right here. 100% free, and please consume and share our great content. Click either one of these 2 boxes for more of our work.